Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be creating a series of podcast episodes called The Four Pillars of Relationships. These are the four foundational elements on which every successful relationship is built. Not random hacks, not just tips that you listen to and don't do anything with, foundational practices that are really going to move the needle in your relationships. Today, we're going to start with the first pillar, and it's the one that most men avoid. Welcome to the Father, Sons, Brothers podcasts. My name's Gareth, and I'm stoked to be sharing this powerful relationship pillar one called inner work. And this is really the foundational piece on which all of your relationships are built. And today I'm joined by Matt in Spain. Welcome, bro.
What's up, brother? Happy to be here.
Happy anniversary for yesterday. How many years have you been married?
5 years, and I realized that was the last time you and I were there when you surprised us for our wedding in Mexico. Great times.
Hmm. So beautiful to be on this journey with you, bro, and I'm stoked to be sharing this content because it's something that both you and I are applying not only in the teachings that we share inside the Father, Sons, Brothers community, but also in our own lives, relationships, and in your marriage. So really excited to share this piece today around doing the deep inner work. And one of the things we were talking about before we got on air here was quite often men come to us thinking that they want to fix their relationships and they like put their self-help as something that they'll do afterwards. And actually that's sort of back to front because we have a way of teaching this inside the academy, which is really it needs to start with your own personal work, your inner work. And so, Matt, maybe you want to touch the framework on which we built the entire academy and we base our entire work upon her.
Yeah, it's really a function of doing the work on yourself first. It goes from inside out. The way we frame it is me, we, world. So the me work is how do I identify my patterns? How do I do the work on myself? How do I figure out really who I am so that when I get to the we section of relationship, I'm coming as the full power version, most empowered version of myself to connect with my partner, connect with the people in my community, the people in my family. And then the third piece is the world. How do I, as an empowered individual in a powerful relationship, make my mark on the world and get the traction that I want to really do my purpose work? And so yeah, everything that we set up in the academy is through that framework of me, we, world. And yeah, it's a powerful way of looking at it because I think it's easy to think that, like you said, I'll do the me work when my relationship is good. No, that's not it. Or the relationship is gonna unlock my ability to really work on myself. It's gonna give me that missing piece so that I can be me. And that's a fallacy. We really got to start with ourselves.
Yeah. And that framework is actually, think about it like a pyramid. So what Matt's talking about is the me actually sits as the base at the bottom of the pyramid. On top of that is we. These are the relationships that you have with your partner and your family and your friends. And on top of that is world. And this is how you show up to bring your mission to the world, your soul calling, whatever it is that you came here to do. And like any structure, if that base layer, me, the inner work that we're talking about in this episode is not strong, it's impossible to have a healthy relationship with your partner or with your family. And so, yeah, it really starts by recognizing that you have inner work to do. And if you don't take the time to do that, you're going to be looking in your outside world to improve your relationships and unsure of why your relationships keep having similar patterns or similar themes showing up. And really, what we say is everything in your world is a relationship, is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. And I know this to be true. I know this to be true in my own life. There was a time in my life when I was continually manifesting relationships that were chaotic, or I would project that my partners weren't showing up fully, or when I recognized afterwards that that was a time in my life where my inner world was in chaos, where I didn't have a practice of sitting in peace, of completely loving and accepting myself. And if I don't have that process of doing the inner work, it's always going to be projected out into the relationships that I have. And so this is really a process of understanding and getting to know ourselves. And this me pyramid, that doing the inner work, is really based on a couple of different things. We've got a load of different tools inside the academy, which is our men's membership, which is based on what Matt was talking about, this me, we, world structure. And in many ways, that base layer is what the Buddhists call know thyself. This is a journey to get to know yourself. How well do you know yourself? What are the patterns that you've inherited from your parents, from the culture at large, from the wounding that you had, whether it's conscious or unconscious? If you don't know these things, they're going to continually show up in your relationships.
Yeah, and while we were doing this work, I was able to see, that in my relationships, as I do this work today as a 46-year-old man, I can uncover patterns that have manifested for the past 20 years in my relating over and over and over again. And it took until now to see it, for something like, one of my things is I used to always ask my partners, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And what
Mm-hmm.
I was really realizing now is that I wasn't okay. I wasn't feeling secure in myself, and I was outsourcing that to them. And I can see past partners who were like, "Yeah, Matt, I'm fucking okay. I'm okay. Stop asking me if I'm okay." And I never really connected that until I saw that I was outsourcing my own feeling of empowerment to them. And if they said yes, then it was like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry anymore. But if they said no, I could then project my own insecurity onto them and make it their work to do instead of looking at myself. So that's one of the ways that if you don't do the self work, it just keeps showing up over and over again in every relationship you're in. So important piece.
That one is so big. It's been true for me as well, and it's been true for a lot of people. A lot of people have this strategy of people pleasing in their relationships, and quite often what underlies that is what you're touching here, which is I'm not okay if you're not okay. And I've had that as well when I notice that I can feel my partner like maybe not in her power or have had a bad day. Instead of holding my truth and holding her in whatever she's moving through, I go into like rescuer mode. I've got to try and do something in order to get the other person to be okay. And it's not a grown up strategy. It's a trauma response where I don't feel okay. Nothing's actually unsafe in my world, but I have that piece as well for sure.
Mm.
One thing I can share is
Well, I mean, the rumor is, go ahead.
I was going to say one of my one of my patterns that I've had for most of my life has been hypersexuality. I've spoken about that a few times on the podcast, and until I get to know myself, I don't know what's driving the actual behavior. There's something underneath. I'm not sure what it is, but there's a part of me that would continually seek connections with women to make myself feel better. I would have this almost insatiable drive to continually connect with as many women as I possibly could. And the pattern for me looked the same. I would connect with somebody, I would be excited about the connection. As soon as the connection had happened, I would feel some guilt and some shame. I would push it away. I would go through a process of just landing myself back into my world, only to have it repeat a couple of days or a week or so later and not realize what it was. As I got the chance to know thyself, get to know myself a bit better, what I understood and now I know about myself is there's a young version of me that had a couple of different pieces. One of them was shame around sexuality, so I felt shame about it. So when I had an intimate connection, it felt amazing for a moment, and then the shame completely consumed me because I was born and raised in a Christian household. And so I would feel shame about it and then want to distance myself from it. And that shame was what was creating the loop. And as I get to know myself, I get to accept those parts of myself. You and I have both done some work in the sacred sexuality and tantra space, have the opportunity to get to know ourselves a bit better. And through that journey, start to integrate, accept all these parts of myself. And then I'm standing in my power. I can choose who I want to connect with, and it's not completely consuming me. But what was underlying that pattern was a core wound, and this is one of the things that we teach inside the Magnetic Masculine Masterclass, which I'll share in a moment. Is we have a relationship that's formed at a young age with our mothers, and maybe you want to touch that because I know when we spoke about this core wounding inside the legendary lover, something shifted for you quite quite big.
Oh, bro, you're gonna have to remind me what it was. It's so interesting when we do the shadow work. When you unclick a piece like this,
Yeah.
it almost it changes so much, and it's hard to even figure out what it is. Remind me what that was that
We were
unlocked for me.
we had a guest facilitator, and she was talking about the shadow pieces, and she touched one that you recognized as your own wound. You remember?
Yeah, yeah, I do. It was
I think it was the good boy.
um, I'm blanking, bro. I'm blanking.
We had we had this moment where we went through these core wounds that were facilitated by a guest facilitator inside the Legendary Lover Method container. And we spoke about these core wounds. And I remember when she spoke about the good boy wound, it touched something in you that just unlocked some tears, that you was this real recognition that you really remembered, like, I do have this pattern. And the awareness that we sometimes get touches this young part of ourselves when we recognize these core wounds, much like I did. There's a beautiful map. Maybe I'll share it here, because what really was underpinning this hypersexuality for me was a couple of things. One of them was this, what I mentioned, conservative upbringing around intimacy, where I didn't feel that it was okay or acceptable to have erotic desires, and so there was shame around sex. Then there was this beautiful moment when I moved from one province to the next in South Africa, and I was a year younger than every other guy in my grade when I was about 10 years old. And so I was seeking to find my way in the playground, to be seen by my brothers. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be part of the gang. And I was a whole year younger than them. So at 10, when they were 11, I'm like developmentally a whole year younger, both in size and in maturity. And by a strange twist of fate, I had a girlfriend who said she wanted to kiss me behind the bike shed. And when we got there, she told me she wanted to French kiss me. So she put her tongue in my mouth, and that was my first French kiss. And it was super sweet, I guess, as your first kiss might be. But when I went back to the playground, desperate to be seen by my brothers, I was like, hey guys, I just want to let you know I kissed. I won't share her name yet, even though I have spoken to her about it. And we had a French kiss. And in that moment, none of them had French kissed anybody yet. And I was a hero. And that combination of the shame around sexuality, but also the way that I could connect with women and then be seen and validated by my brothers, became my pattern. And this is the young pattern that basically cemented in my field, that whenever I didn't feel okay with myself, I would seek intimate connections through women in my life to make myself feel better. But then the shame sets in and the loop repeats. And then a few days later, I start to feel lonely again, or I don't feel seen. And then I go out there and go and try and seek connection. And this is basically what happens. And as I saw these patterns, much like I was alluding to earlier when we had that breakthrough in the Legendary Lover, there was a moment where I was just completely blown away by the magnificence of what this is. These young patterns, these parts that run our experiences, are so beautiful. They're so perfect. And they're exactly what I needed to do at that time, to show up in the world, to be seen as the 10-year-old in that new grade, wanting to be seen by other men or the other boys at that time. And my work now as a grown up is to hold that young part of myself and recognize that I don't need to prove myself to anybody. I don't need to validate myself to the men in my life. I don't need to be seen by anybody. I'm enough the way that I am. And there's so much magic when we do get a chance to see these patterns. Eh?
Yeah, it's so true. And like, going back to doing the work, when we start seeing these patterns, it uncovers these wounds. And these wounds came from a trauma. And it's like when the legendary lover, when we had that guest facilitator and she identified that I was constantly seeking the approval or being seen by my mother, it's like, that's not something I actively think about. But when we dig deep and we do the work and it uncovers like that, yeah, I broke down crying for, a long time in that container, and it was cathartic. It was seeing that, yeah, I experienced this and this shapes my pattern, just like getting validation on the playground. I mean, that continues all the time as you go into adolescence, as you grow up and you hook up and you tell those stories, like you see your buddies light up and that brings validation, and that's a pattern that you run over and over again. I'm with you.
So, this first episode is called Doing the Deep Inner Work. And I just want to share that every single man carries an embedded pattern that you received from the relationship that you have with your mother. Now, it doesn't matter if the relationship that you have with your mom was beautiful or non existent or completely chaotic. You have received a pattern from your mother, which we call a core wound, and it has been underpinning almost all of the relationships that you've had throughout your life. And unless you go through the process of doing the inner work and identifying what this wound is and healing this young version of yourself, it's going to continually run in the shadow and play out in your relationships until you do the inner work of healing it. So before I leave you this episode, I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about the last argument that you had with your partner, or the last relationship that you had that ended. What was the feeling underneath that? Not the content of the fight, not what the specific was that you ended up arguing about, but what was the underlying feeling? And where does that feeling live in your history? This is one of the themes that we're going to cover inside the Magnetic Masculine Masterclass. In the link description for this episode, we're going to be sharing a simple link that you can click. It'll open up a WhatsApp conversation and give you immediate access to the Magnetic Masculine Masterclass, where you will identify which of the 6 core mother wounds is yours, how to integrate it, and how to show up fully so that it doesn't sabotage the relationship that you're in right now or your future relationships. Such an honor being on the show with you again, brother. And yeah, join us next week as we unpack the second of the 4 pillars inside the relationship, 4 pillars of relationship that are going to help you build a solid foundation in your relationships. And if you're interested in learning more about the Academy, join the masterclass. The success page, once you've registered, will give you an invitation to join us inside the Academy, where you'll see Matt and myself teaching this whole framework around me, we, and world.
Thank you, Gareth. Look forward to seeing you guys on the inside. Cheers.
Till next time. Peace.